I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. I testify at this moment to my powerlessness and to thy might, to my poverty and to thy wealth. There is none other God but thee, the help in peril, the self-subsisting. Baha'u'llah. The purpose of God in creating man hath been and will ever be to enable him to know his Creator and to attain his presence. To this most excellent aim, the supreme objective, all the heavenly books and the divinely revealed and weighty scriptures unequivocally bear witness. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you so much. So now I'll introduce our speaker for today, and just a reminder to save your questions until after the talk, and we'll have time for our Q&A session. And if you're new to the Baha'i Faith, or if you'd like to be added to our mailing list, you can fill out the Google form that I'll put in the chat. Our speaker this week is Dr. Mehran Amoui, and his topic is In Search of Purpose and Meaning in Life, a Baha'i Perspective. Dr. Amoui has received his master's degree in biochemistry from the University of California and his Ph.D. in genetics from Institute of Molecular Genetics, Academy of Science in Prague, Czech Republic. He has worked as a professor, scientist, and researcher during the last 32 years, and he has authored more than 24 scientific articles in various medical journals in the United States and Europe. He lives with his wife in Northern Virginia and serves on the local spiritual assembly, the local governing body of the Baha'i Faith. And with that, I'll hand it off to Dr. Amoui.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to express my thoughts about this very important subject that has been always, at least for last 50 years or so, in my mind, if there is any purpose or meaning to my life, and why I'm here, what I'm doing in this physical world or this planet. I want to share my screen with you. So let's see if we can, because everybody can see my screen now. Yeah, so the image that you see is an image that has been taken a few years back by the Hubble telescope. And this is a very tiny part of our universe. It's basically 1/26 millionth of the sky that we can see. It's if you can see it, is about 1 square millimeter of what the sky is about. So as you can see, there are in even this tiny portion of the sky, you can see so many different galaxies and stars, and it shows the vastness of our physical universe. And it's important for me to place humanity within the context and the big picture. So the next slide shows our place in one of these galaxies, which is our own Milky Way. This is a medium-sized galaxy in the whole wide universe. As I said before, we have billions and billions of galaxies in our universe. To be exact, there is no way to be exact, but there are about 2 trillion galaxies in our universe that so far we can see. And out of these 2 trillion, each one of them, they have billions and billions of stars, and each star has its own planet. So you can see that our place as a humanity in this vast universe, the significance of our place in this vast universe. And again, to me, it's very important to put everything in context. Where do we stand in this universe that we exist in, this physical universe? Okay, so I'm going to go right out of the back and share with you that what is the purpose of and meaning of our life according to Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of the Baha'i Faith. As one of the prayers of that Maya Jun said, At individual level, the purpose of God in creating man has been and always be to enable him to know his creator and attend his presence. This is what Baha'u'llah says, the founder of Bahá'í Faith says, that at individual level, we need to know our creator and attain his presence. These are important words. We will come back to these words again later on, that to know God and to attain his presence. Then there is a collective level and social level of our existence, meaning to existence, and that's in our planet. What are we doing to, bring some peace and unity in our planet? And that's our job and our goal and the purpose of our being on this planet is to promote the unity of mankind and world peace, because world peace basically is impossible, at least at this stage of the history of humanity, without the unity of mankind. So my next question is, so what about, okay, all this nice, if you believe in Baha'u'llah and if you believe in God, so we are clear about what is our purpose in this life. But what about those of us who do not believe in existence of God? That's a major issue, because there are so many people who don't even acknowledge that there is a God, there is a creator. In my understanding, there is no logical way to prove or disprove the existence of God. I haven't seen any logical explanation that can prove the existence of God. There are certain arguments that, of course, every created thing, everything needs a creator. But then again, if that's the case, who has created the creator, if that's the case? So I'm not really convinced about this argument, but the only way that I have reached this, I have reconciled myself to the existence of God, is through the knowledge of the manifestation of God. Manifestation of God in Baha'i literature is, what is meant is the prophets or the messenger of God. So these are the people that manifest the attributes of God. That's why I call them manifestation of God. So after studying their writing and getting to know them through their writing and through their life history, I personally have come to this conclusion that there must be something, because it doesn't make sense that, for example, Jesus Christ gave his life on the cross for nothing, or Baha'u'llah, he suffers many years of exile and imprisonment because of his belief in God. And according to himself, that's what because they asked him that, prove God. If you really think God is there, just prove it to us. And he said, if there was no God, I would have been the biggest loser in a whole universe. Because that's true, because he lived in a very comfortable life. His father was a vizier in the court of the Shah, and he gave up everything because of his belief in God. So for me, I'm not asking you to just, believe him, but it is very important for each one of us to investigate that, because if we do miss this very important question, that if there is God, or if there is a world, an unseen world beyond this physical universe, if there is such a thing and we miss that, is going to have a grave repercussions in eternity for us. And I will come back to that, because according to the Bahá'í Faith, humans are eternal. Humans never die. I mean, we change shape, of course. We lose this physical body, and we may go to the other world in some different shape or nature, but we never die. We are eternal. And that's the way a mighty word, because eternity is a long, long, long time. And I always feel bad for those people who commit suicide, because they think that they can put an end to everything because of the hardship that they are suffering. But it's going to be very rude awakening for them, because there is no end to this life. We are eternal. We just go from one nature to another. So again, since we know that the purpose of our life is to know God, so let's see what Baha'u'llah says about how to know God. He acknowledged himself here that he is very, unable to know the essence of God. And these are from his gleanings that has been translated in English. In one quote, he says, "How bewildering to me, insignificant as I am," and this is the messenger of the God, of manifestation of the God in our time that is saying that. "How bewildering to me, insignificant as I am, is to attempt fathom the sacred depth of thy knowledge. How can mine eye, which had no faculty to perceive itself, claim to have discerned thine essence? And how can mine heart, already powerless to apprehend the significance of its own potentialities, pretend to have comprehended thy nature?" So the big question, if the manifestation of God himself is acknowledge his incapability to know the essence of God, how we as the created people in this world, we can know God. So that's a very important issue that we need to reconcile somehow. Thankfully, Baha'u'llah himself, he show us a way out of that. He explains that whoso had recognized the dayspring of divine guidance, and by that he means the manifestation of gods or the prophets, whoso had recognized the dayspring of divine guidance and entered his holy court, had drawn nigh unto God and attained his presence. Again, if you go back several slide back, this is the purpose of life, to know God and to attain his presence. So now that we know that we can get to know God through knowing his manifestations. So let's see how we can get to know the manifestations of God. Is there any way to know these messengers of God? So again, it is a way out, because we can't get to know these manifestations of God through their spiritual qualities. Of course, as I said, you can always know them by reading their writings. This is very important to ascertain for yourself, each one of us. We need to ascertain for ourselves that what are they saying is true. And the way that you know them, as Jesus Christ said, that to get to know the truth is to know the fruit of that tree. You need to know by getting to know the fruit of the tree, you know that it's true or not. So I just made a short list of these spiritual qualities that each manifestation of God is portraying, and each one of us, we need to practice these and incorporate these into our soul within this short opportunity that we have in this physical life. We have something like 80, 90, 100 years maybe to learn and practice these spiritual qualities. Because as we are going to see later on, these qualities are very important for our life in the next world. And these are compassion, selflessness, sincerity, truthfulness, humility, forgiveness, honesty, self-sacrifice, justice, and reliance on God or will of God. So, and I am sure there are others that I forgot to mention here, but you know, you get to the gist of what I'm saying. Those are the qualities, the spiritual qualities that we all know about, and we need to learn about them and add them to our soul and practice them. Practice. That's what they said, you know, in the school that when I was in school, they said practice makes perfect. So if we want to learn these, we need to practice them in our life. So then again, the question is, why again these spiritual qualities are so important? Why it is important to learn about this and practice them in this earthly life? There are two main reasons, according to Baha'u'llah. This earthly life, this physical life, again, that I said, maybe is about 80, 90, 100 years. That's the only training ground for acquiring these qualities. If we miss this opportunity, that's it. You're done. You can't learn that. You can't train about this once we pass on to the next world. And the second thing, that these qualities, each one of them, are absolutely essential for our life after we pass on from this physical life. They're absolutely essential. Without them, we are going to be handicapped, as we're going to see in the next slide. So, according to Baha'u'llah again, these qualities, these spiritual qualities that I mentioned in the previous slide, they're all inherently and latently within us, within each one of us as we are born. But they need to be developed. Because if they are not developed, we cannot benefit from them. Baha'u'llah mentioned that regard man as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value. Education can alone cause it to reveal its treasures and enable mankind to benefit therefrom. So these are inherent in our soul, but again, we need to practice them. We need to educate and bring it from the mind, bring it to the surface, because mind is usually underground. So we need to bring it to the surface and project them into our soul in a way that is going to benefit ourselves and mankind as a whole. So in the Baha'i literature, there have been this analogy between an embryo and human souls, that there are huge number of similarities between these two entities, between the embryo that is growing within the mother's womb and the human souls that is developing within using this physical body that we have been given. So let's go one by one about these similarities. And there is one difference, actually. At the end, we are going to see the difference. But most of them, there are quite a few similarities. For embryo, the home of an embryo is the mother's womb. For our souls, the home is our physical body. The home of the soul is our physical body. What about the goal? The goal of embryo is to acquire limbs and organs during this short stay in the womb of a mother. The 9 months that it stays in the womb of the mother, its only job and goal is to acquire these physical organs that is required for it to function in this physical world. And the goal of the soul, similarly, is to acquire virtues and spiritual qualities which are needed to function in the spiritual world after we pass on from this physical world. The third similarity is that the mother womb is the only temporary place for the embryo to grow. Similarly, our physical body is only a temporary place to exist and for our soul to acquire the perfection and the spiritual qualities. That's very important. That last point is very important because we need to understand that you're here for a temporary period of time, for a short period of time. 100 years may look very long, but for the amount of the job that we need to do is not that long. It's a temporary place for us, for our soul to acquire this perfection. The fourth similarity is that the limbs and organs that embryo acquire in the womb are not necessarily needed for his embryonic life, but needed for his next life. I mean, in the womb is so dark. Why an embryo would develop eyes? It would wonder, if it has a choice, it would wonder, why do I need eyes? It's dark here, I can't see anything. Or why do I need limbs? There is no way to go. But the issue is that it doesn't know that this is a temporary place, that is going to end soon and is going to go to another reality, to another life. And that's why he's developing all these limbs and organs. Similarly, these spiritual qualities and perfection which the soul can acquire in this life, they are not necessarily required for this physical life, but they are absolutely needed for this next life. I mean, a lot of people, they have no idea about love, and that's okay. I mean, they can continue living without love or other qualities, other spiritual qualities. It would be sad to not know them, not to practice them, but it's not really required. They can still live in this physical world. But if they don't, they're going to have some handicap in the next life. The last similarity is about that if embryo does not acquire these organs during his embryonic life, we cannot acquire them in the next life. Naturally, they cannot acquire them in this physical life, in the new life after birth. That's important. So it must acquire them during his embryonic life. If not, he will be handicapped all his life. He's going to have some kind of disability if he doesn't develop eyes, for example. The same way for the soul, if it doesn't acquire these spiritual virtues in this life, missed the boat. It cannot acquire them in the next. This is the only training ground to acquire these spiritual qualities. Once you're done, you're done. Nobody can come back and say, okay, I forgot to learn about this. I forgot to practice these. Let's do it again. No, it's done. That's why it's so important for me to share these with all of you, because it's so important. Again, I'm not saying to accept it blindly, but it's worth to investigate them, because it has such important repercussions for whole eternity, for our eternity. Okay, now that we talked about the similarities, I want to talk a little bit, just talk about one difference between embryo and our soul. Thankfully, embryo does not have freedom of choice about developing these limbs and organs. Everything is programmed for the embryo. It goes through this program cycles one by one during these 9 months, and it develops every single organ that is needed to function in this life. But for our soul, we do have freedom of choice. We can practice these virtues in our life, or we can ignore and disregard them. It's up to us. We have a choice in that. These are very important. If this is really the take-home message from my talk, if there is one single slide that you need to remember, is this analogy. This is very important, that we need to know that this is the only place that we can acquire these virtues. This is the goal of our life. And if we miss the boat, it's forever. And we have a freedom of choice to do it or not do it. So beyond this place that is for our spiritual growth, what is important about this world? Is that any other importance? Again, according to Baha'u'llah, it's very meaningless. Beside this spiritual growth goal, Baha'u'llah says this world is but a show. That's important. It's a show. It's really a play, vain and empty, a mere nothing, bearing the semblance of reality. It's not real. It's just it looks real. It has a semblance of reality, but not real. Set not your affection upon it. Verily I say, the world is like the vapor in a desert, which the thirsty dreameth to be water, and striveth after it with all his might, until when he cometh unto it, he findeth it to be a mere illusion. Again, it's just illusion. This is interesting because when I read that the first time, I said, okay, but pain is real. Hunger is real. I can't just disregard it. I can't say it's illusion. But again, everything is relative to our human body. This is in relation to our body. And in relation to our body, yes, this world is real because we feel. We feel pain, we feel hunger, we feel thirst. Every single physical need that we have, must be one way or another, it has to be satisfied. Otherwise, we are going to be very unhappy. So again, relative to our physical body is real, but beyond that, no. So Baha'u'llah talked about a story from his childhood. And there was a wedding in his one of the older brothers in his father's house, and there was a puppet show in this house, in this ceremony. So the puppet master came and he showed all the, he brought everybody, the king and the princess and the soldiers, and they brought a thief and the executioner, and they killed the thief and so on. And after the show is over, the puppet master put everything back into the box, and Baha'u'llah was stunned. He asked the puppet master, what happened? What is this box, and what is the nature of this display? And the puppet master said, everything that you saw, the king, the princess, the soldiers, the thief, everything, it goes to this box. And then Baha'u'llah says, from that day on, everything had become meaningless to me about this life, has lost its meaning, is not real for me. So I use another analogy. I like analogies because it's bring home the point. When I was a kid, we used to play a game called Monopoly. I'm sure most of you know about this game. Once you enter in this game, you're handed some paper money, and you use this money to, acquire real estate, everything else, acquire wealth basically, the best way you can. The analogy I want to use with this life is the worthlessness of this wealth or money, because once the game is ended, all the money that we made during this game is worthless, has no worth, is meaningless. We need to go on with our life, with our real life. In the game, when we are playing, we do everything we can to make as much as money as we can, we want, or we can. But once the game is ended, doesn't matter how much money you made. It's over. The game is over. The same way is this physical body, physical life. No matter how much wealth you acquire or you accumulate, once we move on to the next world, meaningless. worthless. We can't even take it. Even if you could take it, it would be worthless. The only thing that we can take to the other world is our spiritual condition. Spiritual condition. How much of the virtues that God wanted us to acquire, how many of those virtues we have acquired by practicing them. This is the only thing that we will take. And that's the only thing that it would be worthwhile for our physical, for our eternal life. Everything else, how many PhDs you have made, you have acquired, how much money you have made, all this doesn't matter. So I'm going to end my talk about, this is the last slide, I promise. Because I said that there was a individual goal, and we talked about that to acquire the virtues. And also there is a collective, at the collective level, there is a purpose to this life, which is very much related to the individual life, because the individual goal, because without those goals, we cannot do the collective levels of our purpose. And here, Baha'u'llah mentions that truly I say, moderation is desirable in every affair. And when it is exceeded, it leads to detriment. Consider the civilization of the people of the Occident, how it has occasioned commotion and agitation to the people of the world. There has appeared an infernal instrument, and such atrocity is displayed in destruction of life, the like of which was not seen by the eye of the world, nor heard by the ears of nations. Again, I want to just remind you that these words were said during the last part of the 19th century, more than 140, 50 years ago. It is impossible to reform these violent, overwhelming evils except the people of the world become united in affairs or in one religion. So my interpretation is that our collective goal is to become united, the unity of mankind. That's the only way that we can reform these violent and overwhelming evils. And then he goes on, a strange and an astonishing instrument exists in the earth, but it is concealed from minds and souls. It is an instrument which has the power to change the atmosphere of the whole earth, and its toxicity causes destruction. So even at that time, he warned us about the different kind of instrument or weapons that humanity is able to build to destroy the atmosphere of the earth by its toxicity. I'm sure he was referring to the atomic and thermonuclear wars. So in a nutshell, just I want you, just to summarize what I was talking about. It's very, very important to investigate these matters, because our eternal life, if there is such a thing, and it's up to you to investigate that, it depends on it. And it would be a pity if we miss this point. And also, the only way we can avoid destruction of our planet is by unity of mankind. Without it, there is a good chance that we will blow each other and the earth together. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed this talk.
Thank you so much for your talk, Dr. Amoui. If anyone has any questions, you can put it in the chat and I will read it out. We have one question that asks, how can we get rid of ego?
That's a $64,000 question. That's a very good question, actually. The only way I can think of is, again, look at the universe, the pictures I showed in the first and second, and realize how insignificant we are in the scheme of the whole grand picture. We are one person, each one of us, in a huge, huge universe. Even if you don't look at the telescope and all these things, just go outside outside and look at the sky in a clear night, and you see all the stars, and you say, these are all stars like our sun, and each one of us has its own planet, and we are really very insignificant compared to the whole scheme of things. Also, the way that we can always get rid of ego is understanding how evil it is, how it changes, how it makes us thinking that we are superior to others, which we are not. We are all equal. We may have some advantage to others, but others have some other advantage to us. So when you look at the whole pictures, we are all equal. That's the only way I can think of how to get rid of ego. It's understanding that we are, all the same, from the same token, and in this grand scheme of things, we are very, very insignificant compared to the whole universe.
Thank you. Another question asks, what are some of the practical ways we can gain and develop these virtues?
Practice. I mean, Baha'is around the world, they have started a transforming courses called Ruhi courses, and we all Baha'is or non, it doesn't matter, all the people that they are interested to acquire these virtues, they take these courses and they try to practice these spiritual qualities every day. Each course pretty much covers a certain kind of spiritual virtues, and we go over these spiritual virtues, and then we try to do it, to practice it bring it to our life. For example, one of the things that it's really destructive to people is backbiting, right? You're basically killing a person by killing its personality, by mollifying its person. This backbiting, just if we avoid this one thing, there are so many other things, but just with this one thing, we are going to have a much better community. We are going to have a much better society if we stop backbiting against each other, and instead talking about the things that is good within us. And that there are other things that are about truthfulness, not lying. is such an important thing. Lies is really brings the worst in each one of us. Forgiveness, if you learn how to forgive, you're going to have a much better life. I mean, both at the spiritual level, at the individual level, and at collective level. If we do not have these spiritual values, there is no way we can unite. I mean, if unity was so easy, we would have united so far. But the things that are happening in the world, if you look at all the wars that are going around, shows that unity is so difficult. And it's difficult because instead of humility, we have ego. Instead of selflessness, we have selfishness. So these are the two ends of the spectrum, and we need to work to avoid the worst part of the spectrum and move toward the best part of it.
Thank you. Another question asks, how do we know that it is not possible to acquire virtues in the next world?
Again, this is a very good question. The only way we have, again, I don't have any logical way to do that. The only way that I was able to convince myself is by word of Baha'u'llah, my faith into Baha'u'llah. Otherwise, there is no way. And each one of us has to investigate about this manifestation, the truth of this manifestation, and ascertain if it's true or it's false. If it's false, disregard it. It's up to you. But if it's true, then and you develop some faith to what he has said, then you accept his word. But I'm not saying you need to believe in that. But what I'm saying is individual search for truth. And each one of us we owe it to ourselves because our eternity depends on that. We must search for the truth. We must ascertain this person, what it says, is it true or is it false? And the only way you can find out about it is to study his writings, study his life, and then make a decision. Truth or false?
Thank you. The next question asks, how do we respond to individuals who feel helpless, stating, I'm just one person, feeling alone, carrying this responsibility?
We are not alone. Millions and millions of people in the world, Baha'is or not, they are working for that. Just go on YouTube and see how many people throughout the world they are working for that. And you, of course, we are one person. We are just a drop in the bucket. But there are so many different drops. We are not alone. And the more you spread the message, the more you spread the necessity for the transformation of the soul, the more people will work with us. So that's why it's important to spread the message and encourage and invite people for this transformation that I was talking about. Once the people transform and they understand the necessity for acquiring these virtues, both at individual level for their souls and for the collective, at the collective levels for the safeguard of the humanity and our planet and avoidance of another world war, we are better off. Please spread the message that we need to transform and become more virtuous people.
Thank you. Another question asks, what happens if the whole earth is destroyed?
We wouldn't know. I mean, I'm hoping that first of all, I'm hoping that it doesn't happen, that right now we are kind of a pendulum. We don't know which way we are going. There are two outcomes. One is destruction, one is preservation, and I'm hoping that our collective work to transform and protect the peace on the world is going to help us to not blow up the planet. But if we are not successful, I hope that there is enough of people enough of human stays alive to move on the civilization, to go on with the civilization and rebuild the civilization. There is something that they asked to Einstein, I think it was 1949, just after the World War. They asked Einstein what kind of weapon, and you can always research that if you want exact wording of this, you can Google it. They asked Einstein what kind of weapon do you think it will be used in World War III? And his response is very clever and very insightful. Says, I know not what weapons they're going to be used in World War III, but in World War IV, humanity is going to use stone and clubs. That's the only thing that will be left. So it tells you what he was thinking about, that the civilization is going to be pretty much destroyed, and the only weapon that we will have to fight the World War IV will be clubs and stones.
Our next question asks, what is the Baha'i Faith offering? What strategies?
The only way, Baha'u'llah says, the only way to safeguard the peace in the world is to unite. There are several ways you can unite. There is at the bottom, the grassroots level, or at the top level of the political level. He wrote to the kings of the world when he was in Akka. He first came to Akka in early 1870s. And he invited them to unite because otherwise the wars are going to destroy the planet. As we can see, none of them listened to his words, and that's where we are. Again, the other way to do it at the grassroots level, and that's what the Baha'is they are doing through what we call the core activities, what we call it the Ruhi Institutes, that we go through these courses to first of all bring these spiritual qualities to our, to practice them to our souls, to spiritualize ourselves, and also to spiritualize our planet. And we hope that we are not too late. We hope that there are going to be enough of us that can change the world, that they can, at the grassroots level, we can move things toward peace rather than toward war. But the main goal is to spiritualize planet, spiritualize each one of us. And by that we mean bring about these virtues that I talked about and practice them to our, in our life. If we do that, again, these are very important virtues. And once we have them, if we can forgive other people, if we can become selfless, it's going to make a big difference in the way that we treat each other. And I cannot think of, once you have these virtues, that we can have wars. I cannot think of that.
Thank you. So that looks like all the questions we have today. Thank you again, Dr. Amoui, for your talk, and thank you for
You're welcome.
answering our questions.
I enjoyed your company, and again, I invite you to investigate. That's the only thing that I can, press you to investigate the true message of Baha'u'llah. If it makes sense to you, accept it. If it doesn't make sense to you, of course, disregard it.
Thank you. So now I'll introduce our speaker for next week. Our speaker next week will be Mr. Marco Oliveira, and his topic is going to be The Making of Religious History, a comparison between the Gospels and the book God Passes By. And again, these talks occur every Saturday at noon Eastern time, so you can invite your friends and family. And if you're new to the Baha'i Faith, or if you'd like to be added to our mailing list, you can fill out the Google form that I will put in the chat. Thanks for joining, everyone. Hope to see you all next Saturday. Have a great week. Bye.